How did you guys like my test?
It's good.
This studies show that students love it when they get tested a lot, when they get challenged in the classroom. They perform better. They become more prepared. You know, it's much more and a lot of fun for them as well. And I'm going to make it really a lot of fun. Inshallah. Okay. You're going to really like this class, you know. And also what happens, and see, there's two ways of testing. There's what we call the school of the farm and the high school. These are two teaching mentalities. The high school is what we here in the West, what we have, right? You go to school and you supposed to do whatever you want to all year or until the test comes, and then what do?
Study.
Cram. You might take 2 weeks and just get ready for the test, right? Just for the test. And you pass that test and you get what we call Shahadata Zur, a lying piece of paper that says you are now the best thing since ice cream. Okay? You know it. That's the Western way, and you never questioned again about that particular thing. Then there's the Islamic school of the farm. In the Islamic school of the farm, what happens on a farm?
Work.
You have to work how many times a day? How many times a week? You can't wait till September to plant. You can't cram and get nothing, no fruit. You have to milk the goat and the camel and the cow every day, or it's going to be problems, right? You have to weed it every week, once at least. You have to water it twice a week sometimes, right? You have to make sure that you got some scarecrow or something to get those animals out. And you have to do this on a consistent basis or you get nothing. How is that done in the pedagogy of studying? Through memorization. We ever heard this thing? You know it like a poet? Mm-hmm. Why? No, because the poet has an intimate relationship with it. He's thought about it, tasted and presented it, right? In a way that makes sense. It's a unique way. And if you can't understand it, if you understand it in that fashion, then you really know it. You can articulate it in other words. Does that make sense? And for this reason, you know, we always talk about Timbuktu, the actual Timbuktu University in the past. Most of the writings there were poems. Did you know that? Did you know that every science in Islam, it has two major texts, a beginner text and what we call a muntahi, a final, an alafiyya might be called. And both those texts are usually poems in Arabic. What you find at Timbuktu is there's been a lot of miseducation here in the West. Okay. First of all, you have all these so-called Afrocentric educators and historians, but they're really enemies of Islam. One of the ways you know is they never talk to you about the African alphabet. All this history they want to talk about Kemet and this place over there, and they won't even present you with the African alphabet. Why? Why not? Anybody know why? What's the African alphabet? The Arabic alphabet, with maybe 3 different letters. Okay? The same thing if you go to Urdu or any of those Pashto languages. What do they write it in? Arabic script. Okay? So why don't they want to show that to us? Because it points to Islam. It points that literacy in Africa is only based on those who can read the Arabic script, which means that only the Muslims were reading, for the most part. There were some Christians in the Amharic language, but for the most part, okay, that's what it was. And they don't want to say that. Why do you think they go all the way back to Kemet and those different, places like that? Because any of the palatable, empires were always Muslim, right? So you can't have a history of Africa in modern times. What was the Songhai Empire ended in 1910. Okay? That's very close. But it was a Muslim empire. So we don't want to talk about that. So let's talk about the Mali. We don't want to talk about that. That's Muslim too, right? The Dahami, anything you name. So these guys are enemies to Islam in that regard. what my point is when you go back to Timbuktu and you see those writings, even though they're written in the Arabic script, they're in African languages. The poems are in Hausa, in Fulla, okay, in Bambara, in Swahili. They're in those languages. And we notice that the people who speak the Indonesian languages, when they take their Islamic sciences from the Arabic, they put them in their language. We know that the people who are in India, Pakistan, when they get them, they put them in their language. And that's what we have to do as well, okay? Take the sciences and Anglo-Arab science, we call it Arabish, you know? We put it in English, but we use the Arab Islamic terms so that we don't lose anything. Does that make sense? Yes. And those people who speak Arabic will then be able to articulate that in Arabic. And those people who do not can now keep growing in their education and not be held back due to the lack of their Arabic. Does that make sense? And that has been the problem with the Westerners. Okay, there's been a blockage because we have a lot of intelligent, educated people. But the door has been locked because you have to be fluent in Arabic just to get to the meat and potatoes of a lot of things. And we still do, but we can do that now by the visa of the Arab Islamic terms, explaining them in English, just like we do, like I would say with the term Muslim. I don't say, hey, what are you? You don't say, oh, well, I'm someone who submits to the will of, you say, I'm Muslim. And then you explain that term. Does that make sense? Okay. So you had a test today. Now in the Islamic teachings, the way the test is given is similar to what I gave you today. You almost get a blank sheet of paper, okay? And you have to articulate, you have to regurgitate what you know. You present the poem, okay? And you break it down. That's the way we learn. Because ours is an oral tradition. This is what it means to be ummiyun, illiterates. It doesn't mean that we don't write. What's the proof that we do write and we're still ummiyun? The Arabs wrote. Right. In the time of the Prophet, you had people who wrote, but they were still called ummiyun. So we see that that word ummiyun didn't refer to the inability to write. It refers to what you draw your line on. What does that mean? And this is critical for us to understand ourselves. Ours is an oral tradition. I'll give you an example. While we have a big confusion in the West still today, we take a European person and we take an African person. The European man is a store, he owns the property, okay? The African guy, he is going to rent the property. He says, the European guy says, okay, just sign this contract. The rent is due on the 15th, but don't worry about it. Okay, as long as you get it to me by the end of the month, we're good. Okay? But it says on the contract, the rent is due on the 15th. If it's not in 3 days later, there's a $35 fine. Man, don't worry about it. We good. All right? That's just, how they write these contracts out. Mm-hmm. You sign it. Because why? Why would you sign it?
He took his word.
Based on what he what?
His word.
And you put credit in that, don't you?
Yep.
Over what was written on the paper, don't you?
Absolutely.
Ain't that natural for you?
Yep. Yes.
Because yours is an oral tradition. And then what happens on the 17th or the 18th or the 20th, you say, well, you know what, I was running late. I just give it to him on the 20th. Ain't no big deal. He already told me, he gave me his word. Sit up, young man.
Sit up.
Yep. No, I don't do that. So you send it to him 20 and he sends you a bill, $35 fee. What you gonna say?
Man, what's up with this? What's up with that?
What's the deal, Lucille? Yo, what you doing? You must be crazy. Oh, you said, man, you must have forgot. You remember you told me?
Right.
He's going to say, come on, man, you signed the contract. Why is he saying, look at the contract, man. It clearly states that by the third day. Why is he saying that?
He's sticking with his word.
No, why is he saying that? You said because he's not sticking to his word. No, that's not why he's saying that. Because he's not crooked. He's not an oral tradition.
Okay.
He goes by a literal tradition. By what's on paper. And you're going to say, why would you tell me that if you don't mean it? And he's going to turn around and say, why would you sign something and you didn't understand it and you didn't mean it? No, you read it, but you put more credit there. And he said, well, you could say anything, right? And just like you feel, well, you could sign anything. You see the difference? Neither one is wrong. That's we want to blame, saying he's crooked. He's like, no, he is just not like you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you that in the Quran, that he created different people and that because why? لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you can know certain things about yourselves. If you know now that this individual, he follows a literal tradition, now you know that you can't take his word on that. Because he'll say anything just like you'll sign anything. As long as you take his word, you're going to take his word over his writing. He's going to take your writing over your word, over his word. Does that make sense? So this is what we have to understand about, some of the things that we have to learn about ourselves so that we can deal safely and fairly with others. That's all. No one has to be wrong here. It just has to be understanding. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So in the school of the farm, you memorize. You learn the meaning of that poem. And then you come back in and you take your master's degree. What's the master's degree? You stand in front of the board, you recite what you know, and then you stand on that. You explain that in your own words or repeating the words that have been said so that you show that you understand that thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, and that's what we're going to consistently do. Okay, because learning is like walking. Okay? You don't take big, long steps. You take lots of little steps, right?
Right.
So many little steps you can't even count them anymore. So someone says, how did you get from the car over here? How did you walk all those miles? Now you say, man, it's just one step after the other. I can't explain it to you. Same thing when you get to a big issue and you come up with a decision on that issue. They say, where did you get that? I say, man, it's a whole lot of steps we take to get here. Right? Because it's one issue after the other. One issue after the other. The main issue is the objective of the Sharia. Recite it to me, please.
Islam has come to preserve.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
Islam has come to preserve.
No, that sounds weak. Come on, give me some strength, man.
Islam has come to preserve. Islam has come to preserve.
Let's start that all over again. Okay. It sounds like a Gatling gun. Islam has come to preserve and protect, prioritize and always respect my deen, my mind, my wealth, my honor, my lineage, myself. If you still have to think about it, you don't know it yet. When we took martial arts, you start counting the moves, right? And you don't know it. You can't perform like that, can you?
Be subconscious.
It's got to be natural. It's got to flow. When is it going to flow? The first 100 times just gets you used to it. Okay? The first 100 times, now you know what you're saying. Now you have to do it repetitively till it flows naturally. And you have to say it to someone else. Because saying it to yourself is real comfortable. Sometimes in my sleep, I recite so well.
And we all.
Right? Then I open my mouth and say, man, who changed the station? You get the point? So doing it to someone else breaks that ice. Breaks that ice. And you get used to it. Another thing, people don't like to fail. People, oh man, I did so bad. No, this is for you. Teachers love when students don't do well at first. Okay, so it lets you see, because when we take this test again, you're going to take it in 10 minutes. Maybe even 5 minutes. Okay? Because it's going to be so easy. When you fail to do something, then you can do it. Now you're not less intimidated at that thing no more, right? Next time out, it's not so problem. Hey, keep doing it till it's done. And so we can see progression. Because sometimes we give these classes and people say, well, I didn't learn anything. You did, but it's the problem the teacher didn't document it for you. Okay, because I'm documenting it for you, so you can see how much you've learned. Islam has come to preserve and protect. Prioritize and always respect my deen, my mind, my wealth, my honor, my lineage, myself. Even if you don't know it, try to mouth it out. Islam has come to preserve and protect. That's what we say. Islam has come to do what?
Preserve and protect.
I know the police claim that,
Yes.
right? So we're making a play on that. Islam has come to
Preserve and protect.
to prioritize and
Always respect.
what? To prioritize, put things in a proper order, right? Always respect, give the honor, the proper honor and dignity to the particular thing that's supposed to be there, right?
Right.
This is what prioritizing. Sometimes we see people doing something. This is not the important thing to do at the moment.
Right.
Like a lot of times, the guys and the girls, when they want to get married, what are their major concern? No, how cute they are. He said he's the only honest one. Everybody else was wanting to say it, but nobody wanted to say it.
Yeah, right.
Okay? Yeah, they wanted to say, is she cute? Is he cute? That is not the priority first. The first priority is the deen. Then out of all 100 people there, whoever has the best deen, then out of the cutest of the best deen, or the one who has our work now, right?
Right.
The guy who has deen and has work and he's ready to marry, right? Now we get the cutest one out of that. If it's a guy. If it's a lady, you know, does she have a good family? Some people worry about the pedigree of their dogs more than they do the pedigree of their spouse. Right?
Right.
And it don't make a difference. So these are Islam has come to prioritize this. Because even in Islam there's kufuwa. Right? And what is kufuwa? Yeah, Shaikh. In the same class. If they can be paired together. Right? And Allah tells us in the Quran, the Zani, the Mushrik, you don't marry these different people with different people. Because they're not going to work together.
Powerful.
There's going to be some big disparity in expectations. Right? And this is vital for the health and the unity of the family. Now, the human factor is strange. People can become whatever they want to. That's the thing. But those are rare cases, not the norm. All right, so we took our test, and now we're going to move forward. Turn around, start reciting. What we're going to do now, I want you to take notes. This learning the science that we're studying today is, what are we studying?
Tafseer.
But in general, we're studying what?
The ayat.
Come on.
Since
Touch me.
we're studying ayat for
Start
ayat.
with the first page. Read everything that I give you. Okay? Every page. Every page. 15 times every page.
You can give him.
Okay?
You can write on that.
Right. You know, the thing about a student and someone else will skip the first couple of pages. No. A student will read every page. Every dot. That's when cross your dots. Dot your I's and cross your T's. There may be something you learn by reading everything and going through it all. There will be. Technique. Form. You get accustomed to certain things. You hear it repetitively. There's a reason why. So now we're studying the Quran. So what we're going to learn throughout this course is that it's not just to study the facts. Nowadays, everybody says, just give me the facts and don't tell me nothing. No. What was happening in the past is that people learned class. They learned that this is a league, this is a guild, right? There's a lifestyle, a mentality that comes along with that. And this young man has received ijazah from me in these 40 hadith. And he's going to recite them to you, and you're going to get the ijazah from them as well. Going to Ali Muli Qari, okay, Al-Qari. He was a famous scholar of Tafseer, famous scholar of Tajweed and the Qira'at, a famous scholar of Quran. And he composed together a book called the 40 Hadith, dealing with the excellence and the high status of the Quran and the people of the Quran. Okay? Meaning the people of the Quran should get the khallaq bihadihi hadith. The people of the Quran should carry the mentality of what is pointed to in these hadith, and I'm going to explain them to you. Go ahead, Bismillah.
Collection of 40 hadith, Al-Arba'in by Mullah Ali Al-Qari, 40 hadiths on the excellence of the clear Quran, translated by Maulana Muhammad Muhammadi, commentary by Muhammad Ansa and Maulana Muhammad Muhammadi.
Okay, so that's what we're reading. I'm going to make commentary on that, what they state. So you hear two things. You hear how they translate it, how I'm going to correct that if I feel necessary. What the commentary is from their angle and what we're going to say about that as well. Does that make sense? Go ahead. Continue.
Al-Arba'in, the beneficial effusion in 40 hadith on the excellence of the clear Quran.
Al-Arba'in is the Arabic word for 40. Okay? So that you get to hear that. Mullah is a title. Okay? Like the noble person. Does that make sense? It's like the Amir, Ustad, the professor. These are terms. It comes from the Indo-Pak people. They use that term. Okay? Go ahead. Al-Qari, Ali Qari. His name was Ali Sultan. But Qari is another title given to someone who is a reciter of Quran. Not just any reciter. They have perfected the rules of tajweed. Does that make sense?
No.
Go ahead.
Publisher's preface. In the name of Allah, the All-Kind, the Most Kind. All praise belongs to Allah, Lord of the worlds, and may peace and blessings be invoked upon Muhammad, his chosen one, and upon his family and companions, one and all. The tradition in Muslim religious literature of gathering collections of 40 hadith dates as far back as the 1st century after Hijrah.
Okay, so what he's talking about here is that has become a tradition. A tradition here doesn't mean that the Prophet ﷺ said to do it. Because all the narrations that say that the Prophet said to do it are all tremendously weak. So weak, no scholar claims that they're authentic. However, the scholars of hadith and other than hadith have always promoted everybody. Gather 40 hadith. Restrict yourself. Just think about this. Your legacy. You're going to gather and put on a piece of paper your 40 hadith that you want your son, your daughter, your child to read that represent what you want them to remember. Just 40. You think about that? Which 40 hadith would you put there? You get my point now? Those hadith are going to be tremendous for you. And this is a beautiful practice. It takes a long time to think about it. Sometimes you change those hadith up as you go along. When we started doing this in Mauritania, we started looking through and looking, what would I want my child to do? And then you look back, and I have some of my notes from Mauritania, and I say, oh, I wouldn't want that hadith. At that time, that was impressive to me. Now, other things are impressive to me. You get the point? So you switch them out. It's like baseball cards, right? You put this one in that place and everything. And who knows where you're going to be by the time you pass away, right? With those 40 hadith as a legacy to understand what you want them to understand. So this is what he wanted us. He's a qari, meaning his profession is teaching people how to yaqra'un, right? How to recite. Not just recite, period, recite the Quran. So he chose these particular 40 hadith. And it's going to be important what we see. Go ahead.
Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak al-Marwazi, date 181 al-Hijri, is thought to be the first to have gathered 40 hadith in a collection, and his lead was followed by later hadith scholars such as Muhammad ibn Aslam al-Tusi, date 242 al-Hijri, Al-Hasan ibn Sufyan al-Fasawi, date 303 al-Hijri, and many others.
So we see first 100 years after in Islam, this tradition of scholars has become a thing. We're gathering 40 hadith. Who's the most famous one who gathered 40 hadith? Imam al-Nawawi, right? And don't we have his 40 hadith?
Yes.
And he decided to gather 42 hadith. Why did he gather 42 hadith? Because 2 of those hadith are weak. Okay? Out of his 42 collection, 2 of them are weak. And he wanted to make sure that there were 40 authentic hadith in there. And even the ones that are weak, the meanings are authentic. Because what he gathered was 40 hadith on the fundamentals of Islam. Okay? 40 hadith that have tremendous influence on every aspect of your deen. Look at the first one. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. They say this is in every issue of fiqh. Every issue of fiqh. A deed, the hukum is 5. Either it's haram or it is halal. If it's halal, it's one of 4. It's either wajib, obligatory for you to do, mustahab, recommended for you to do, makruh, discouraged for you to do, but still lawful, or mubah, it is permissible. No general ruling is given to it until the intention is tied to it. Walking is mubah, okay? It's permissible. I can walk, but if I'm walking to the crack house, every step is sinful. You get my point? If I'm walking to the masjid after hearing the adhan, then every step is a barakah. Right? It's a blessing, and I get a reward for that, from a good reward, inshallah. You see, so a regular thing gets changed by the intention. Hey, the boss wants you. So he put that hadith there as his first one. And so we learn from that. We learn from those particular hadith, insha'Allah ta'ala. So go ahead.
Perhaps the most well-known collection is that of Imam An-Nawawi, date 676 al-Hijri, which exists in English and has several commentaries, including Ibn Rajab's exhaustive Jami' al-Ulum wal-Ihkam, published in translation by Turath Publishing in 2007.
Okay, so you see that when Imam An-Nawawi did it, it was 600, right? So the first one starts in 100 plus, so it's even 600 years after that. And still, so we've lost a lot of Islamic, legacy, because what colonialism did is made you certain things stick out, okay? And then all the other things become, fodder. You don't even pay attention to that. And then now, alhamdulillah, with the advent of the computer and the internet, we can bring so many different things back into the flavor of Islam.
Yes.
And all those spices do something. Okay? Go ahead.
Presented to allow readers to memorize the actual words of the Prophet ﷺ. It is hoped that through acquainting readers with the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ, the translator, editor, and publisher, and everyone who made this series possible is included in the hadith. Whoever preserves for the hadith, Yahya Batha.
Okay, the hadith that he's mentioned is the weak hadith I mentioned to you. We call some things hadith. We may mention something as a hadith. We don't actually mean that it's hadith, because the actual meaning of hadith is something that goes back to who? But we mention it as hadith, saying, well, it's weak. If it's weak, it's not hadith then, right? Because it doesn't go back. But we use that as a term to refer to any khabar, any reported statement of the Prophet. So don't get it mixed up, okay? Does that make sense, everybody? All right, go ahead. Bismillah.
Mullah Ali Al-Qari.
Mullah is mullah. One of the things that you learn about writers, and this is another reason why we're doing this. You see they write mullah, and they put U-L-A, right? But really, it should be pronounced M-O-O-L-A-A. Mullah. You get it? So a lot of times you'll see that, and then they'll put a squiggly line on top of it or something like that. They do this to change the way we pronounce our words. Allah mentions in the Quran, يُحَرِّفُونَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ, right? They change the mispronounced word so you forget what it actually means because you forget how it's said. You don't even know what you're talking about. You get it? So we have to go back to the proper, spell the word the way it sounds. Use ebonics. It was the best way to learn how to read. But because it was attributed to Negro peoples, it was given a negative tone to it. But that is the best way to write. Writing should not be sophisticated. The purpose of it is to allow as many people in the society to be able to communicate, right, through writing. So, we need to go back to that when we're writing our words. Mullah Ali Qari. Go ahead. Bismillah.
Mullah Ali Al-Qari, the present arrangement of 40 hadiths, Al-Arba'in, is that of Ali ibn Sultan Muhammad Al-Qari, more popularly known as Mullah Ali Al-Qari, a Hanafi jurist.
Jurist here means he's a faqih. What is a faqih? In the English language, we don't have a faqih. You have a lawyer or a judge, okay? But in Islamic terminology, you have a faqih who's a lawyer judge. You get the point? Now, we also have a qadi who is also a faqih, but he plays a higher role. Does that make sense? Today, right now, we have the beautiful, we have a lot of historic moments happening right now. You have two young men that just returned back from al-Qura, Abu Sajid and Ali David. Al-Qadi Ali Davis and Al-Qadi Abu Sajid. These are two judges, African Americans. Judges. Graduated from Qura from the judges course. And now we have little excuse nowadays. Back in the days, Fareed Abdullah was about to graduate, America asked him to take his visa away. And his last semester, kicked him out of Saudi Arabia. His last semester. But these guys got through, alhamdulillah. So go ahead.
A Hanafi jurist.
Hanafi meaning there's the popular madhahib. Most people think there are only, 4 madhahib, right? But there's about 7 easy from Ahl Sunnah. You have Shawkani, like Shaikh Madkhal in Yemen. Shaykh Muqbil was in the Shawkani madhab. Everybody that was in Yemen that used to be Shia that came over to the Sunnah, they follow the Shawkani madhab. Okay? And as you find Shawkani in the book Fath al-Qadir, in the book of Tafseer, very important book of Tafseer. Okay? But most people don't articulate that. Go ahead.
Hadith expert and
Sorry,
theologian.
go ahead.
Mazhab is a school of thought.
Okay, we say a school of thought. It's like a denomination, whether you're Baptist or Episcopalian or that's what it's like.
No.
It's just all. It's that way. Except we would call it that. The differences are less though. 70% of everything they say is agreed upon. So we're dealing with about 30% of disagreement. So they disagree on the details, and there's reason for the disagreement on the details. Allah tells us in the Quran, and this goes to your lesson on Tafseer, that everything that happens and everything you agree ain't going to be settled in this dunya. Why does he tell us that? It falls under the chapter of understanding the qadr of Allah. Right? So you can be comfortable. So many different scandals out there, right? And then you say, well, I want to get the truth out there. It ain't never going to be known like that because there's too much things happening. So be comfortable with it. Allah says on the last day, though, I will gather you guys together and unabbi'ukum bima kuntum fihi takhtalifun, explain to you, unabbi'ukum nabba'a, right? He's going to give you the information about what y'all were disagreeing about. The reality to that. So why are we trying to fight and kill each other over it now? You get my point? Accept the qadr of Allah. This is how He designed it. The Hanafis do not accept certain narrators. They were in Iraq. They ain't from our people. We don't know them. We're not saying they're bad, but we only take them from people we know. So that changed what the answer was from them. Because the narrations they got were from their people. You get the point? The people in Medina, the Malikis, said, yo, we live in where the Sahaba's grandchildren live. We're going to follow what they was. We don't care what everybody else was doing. We're going to follow what the Sahabas were doing in Medina. So that, they came up with a different presentation. Does that make sense? Yes. So it makes sense that what was done in Medina might not be permissible elsewhere because you're in a city. That's right. And wherever you change and go to, your fiqh should change. We don't use fiqh with a big, broad brush. We're not painting the sidewalk. We're coloring people's lives. And lives are very, intrinsic and have so many different angles where you can look at it. What was good today in Saudi Arabia, Yemen, or Jordan may be haram for you to do here in Brooklyn. I'm sorry. Where's this? Sorry.
Brooklyn is in Durham now.
Well, they call North Carolina the 6th borough.
Yeah.
So we might as well. We got probably a whole bunch of New Yorkers down here, and almost everybody in New York and New Jersey and Philly got family in North and South and Georgia. North, South, click, and then Georgia. Just like almost everybody in Chicago is from Mississippi, Alabama, and almost everybody. You know what they call the real Los Angeles? Louisiana. The real LA is Louisiana. Because we sometimes don't tell our story correctly, and we let other people's articulate. We didn't go to the North, as immigrants. We went as refugees, running from that racist Jim Crow and the murder. And that should be put in its proper context. So, we have to, again, open our mouths and stop letting other people talk on our behalf. Does that make sense? And tell it to our children so they understand what's really going on. Now, go ahead.
Hadith expert in theology.
Loud.
Hadith expert in theology.
A theologian here is someone who is an expert in Tawheed. It's his particular science. So he's already explained that he's a qari, A scholar in the Quranic sciences. He's a scholar in hadith. You get it? He's a faqih. And now he's talking about a theologian. He's a theologist expert in tawheed. Does that make sense? So he's a scholar in multiple sciences. Go ahead.
He was originally from Herat in Afghanistan, where he received his early Islamic education before traveling to Mecca, where he settled until his death in 1014 to 1606. His scholarship was exacting and his output profuse, having composed works, a great number being encyclopedic in nature on just about every field and subfield of the traditional Islamic disciplines. Mullah Ali al-Qari works are widely read in the Muslim world but have taken a marked historical affiliation with Hanafi diaspora in the Indian subcontinent, where they have been part of the education curricula of the madrasa system for over 3 centuries.
That is because Asia, and that's what Afghanistan is, okay? The Asians have contributed tremendous. Sometimes when we say Asians, we think Chinese, Japanese people, right? Right or wrong?
Right.
It's wrong. That's only Far East Asia, okay? So where's the heart of Asia? That would be India, that would be Iran, that would be Turkestan, that would be Mongolia, Uzbekistan. Turn up your phones, don't disrespect the place, okay? Little sissy bell. So, we're gonna make a man out of it. This bell's gonna make boom, 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 boom. No, but you guys get it. That's Asia. And where's Western Asia?
Arabia.
Arabia, that's the northern part. What's the southern part? East Africa. That's why they still have the term, what they call us? Afro-Asiatic. That's a whole term. Okay? And so we know we have to become educated in geography to appreciate what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. And it's not a bad term or a term that's should not be taken seriously. A lot of times when we make these statements, it's like, oh yeah, whatever. No, it's real. And if it's not real to you, then it's not going to be real to anybody else.
So what should we call ourselves?
Well, we'll talk about that later. You call yourself Muslim. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah says in the Quran, who has a better statement than the one who calls to Allah and says, Innani min al-Muslimin. I am amongst them. I'm a Muslim. Allah says, huwa alladhi sammakum al-Muslimin min qabl wa fi hadha. Right? So we're supposed to be Muslims, and first and foremost. But we'll talk about what you intend further to that as we go through it. Okay? Well, let me just answer. You should take a DNA test and find out what you are. We always talk about knowledge of self. Take a DNA test. You'll find out if you're Fulani, and if you find out if you're Mandinka, whatever you are. But you ain't a black guy. There ain't no such ethnic group. Does that make sense? So, keep it real. And if some people say, well, it's not important. Well, then why do we talk about Viva Syria? Why do we talk about go Afghanistan, go to the Philistine? If it's important to them, it's important to you. Does that make sense as well? Everybody else can't be significant and you insignificant. Go.
Treatises such as
Treatises is a small booklet. Go ahead, louder.
Treatises such as Sharh Fiqh, author's introduction in the name of Allah. Treatises such as Sharh Fiqh Al-Akbar, Mirqat Al-Mafatih, Sharh Mishkat Al-Masabih, Sharh Nukhbat Al-Fikar are all works that will be very familiar to students. This collection of 40 hadiths reflect the author's own devotion to the Quran and his mastery and precision of Quranic recitation and its science, which earned him the title Al-Qari, or the Quran reciter.
Okay, so what I was saying is in the Asian area, the Hanafi fiqh was the one that governed. Okay, so South Russia, okay, all the way coming to what we call modern day Turkey today, and even going into the lower European countries there, the Baltic, Chechen, Chechnya, Caucasus, all those areas was predominantly Hanafi fiqh. What does that mean? It means that the governors were Hanafi. the law that they put on the people was Hanafi. Does that make sense? So then that's why you find him calling them those Hanafi scholars. Does that mean they were against the Sunnah and all this other stuff? No. There was a period of time when people were really set tripping about those types of things, but it's erroneous. It shouldn't be that way. Okay? Everybody that follows the Sunnah, we follow them, no matter what quote unquote madhab they may follow. We don't care about that. What we care about is, does his statement conform with what the law has ordered us to do? Does that make sense? That's our only criteria. And of course, the application of it following the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Okay, now we had the author's introduction, but we're out of time, right? Yeah. What time is that, say?
10.
Okay, so we're way behind time. I'm sorry that we're behind time. But you see how if we just take this little by little, we learn a lot. There's substance, okay? There's qalilun qarra khayrun min kathiran farra. There's a principle, another principle I'm giving you. Qalilun qarra, say that.
Qalilun qarra
Khayrun min kathirin farra.
farra.
Here goes the word farra. Say farra.
Farra.
Now that's another word that's been anglicized. It becomes a fast car. What do they call it?
Ferrari.
Ferrari. And farra means the same thing as Ferrari. Firaran. What does firaran mean? To run away real fast. That's what it means in Arabic. To fly away. Beat it.
Flash.
Yeah. It's not coincidence, people. And it's on the scale. Firara. Right?
Right.
So, qalilun qarra, a little bit made strong and established, is better than a lot that runs away real fast. That's right? We could have read all 40 hadith right here. It wouldn't be the same thing. It wouldn't have that meaningfulness to it. Does that make sense? Okay, we stop here for today.
I have a question. The book, it's been translated. You translated because they said the other books hadn't been the 40.
I translated.
Okay.
Yes. The word sharh here, it means explanation. He wrote a lot of explanations and stuff like that. But see, I'm not giving you things. You're taking them. So as we go through these hadith, you will take notes about them and you write it down. And I'm going to test your jaw. Okay? Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am?
Can you write somewhere the name?
No. I will not. No, because people are too busy. They're too busy doing things I don't want you to do. I don't want you to go look up the book. I want you to come ready, hungry for it when you come here, to listen to it. If you got extra time at home, read Quran. That's your daily thing. Read Quran, 10 pages at least a day. And if you're not doing at least 10 pages a day, you got extra time, do that. That's your everyday action right there. I used to come to class trying to study from Abdullah Din Badawi, the author of Concise Book of Fiqh al-Wajiz. And he would say, have you finished the Quran, Abu Ayyub? And I was like, no, get out. Get out, man. You got so much energy. Go memorize some more. Till you finish. And then start again. Because what you're supposed to do in your position is be so familiar with the Quran that when I start to quote from different places, you can follow me. And then when I start to mention the tafseer for those things, you will remember that. Does that make sense? But if you don't know it, you're not familiar with it. If I say Surah An-Nur and you don't automatically start thinking all the issues tied to zina and mixing with people, right? You don't think automatically the story of the disrespect of Aisha, then you don't know the surah, right? You're not familiar with just the makeup of the surah. And when I start to point to that, you can't put it in context, and you miss a lot. But you can affect that by doing what? Just reading. Every day, read from beginning to end. We're going to retranslate it, inshallah, and it will make sense then. But until we do, read what we got. And if it's that pressing, then we'll do everything we have to make a better translation, won't we? Yes. But if we keep accepting the stuff that's there, that's not meaningful to us, that doesn't help us in our deen, we'll never go anywhere. And we'll die frustrated individuals, unfulfilled aspirations, knowing that we had no excuse. Right?
Yes.
So, read. Yes, sir.
Can you
Not wise.
Can you, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Not wise.
Yeah, remove it up.
The aspects of halal.
Aspects of halal.
Yeah. Can you list those on the board, please?
Mean the 4 that I mentioned?
Yes.
I won't list it on the board, I'll say it out loud.
Okay.
Everything in the world, every one of our aspects of our deen, our culture, hold the book. Be in class. Everything in our deen is 5. Everything in our deen is what?
5.
5 rulings. Either, but you can break this 5 down into 2 sections. Things that are halal and things that are
Haram.
only 1 section of things are haram. 4 sections of things are halal. So halal, the first one would be something
Wajib.
that, sorry?
Wajib.
Wajib, which we would call something that you have to do. Okay? The second thing would be something that is recommended to do. Now, all these things have a definition. We're going to get to it as part of our lessons because it's vital and important as we go through the Quran that we list everything that is halal and haram. Because wajib has a definition. It is everything that you've been ordered to do. And compliance has been demanded. So if you don't do it, you open yourself up to a
Punishment.
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 Okay? Right. But recommended, you've been ordered to do, but compliance has not been demanded.
Demanded.
But you still open yourself up to the physical, worldly harm
Yes.
by not doing that thing. Because everything that's made haram causes harm.
Pain.
Harm.
Harm.
Okay?
Harm.
So that's how it goes. I don't want to start because I'll start and I won't fit. I'll have to finish it. Because it's very important. Even in Kafir culture, there are 5, the same 5, and we have to just approach. We just have to think about it. There are certain things that are wajib for you to do in the Kafir culture,
That's right.
and there are certain things that are haram in Kafir culture. So we have to look and see, so that we can understand these things and start applying them in our lives. As adults, you're supposed to know whatever you're doing, what is the ruling of that thing. Say, I didn't want to start this. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. You're having a quiz Wednesday.